Hi, everyone. Thanks. So about a year ago, Puppet Labs announced, Michael posted to the users and dev lists, hey, we're going to deprecate Dashboard and let go of it. And if it wants to transition to community maintenance, like, I don't know, if somebody wants to step up, go for it. And I said, yes, me. We need that, we use it, and I'll be happy to maintain it, because there's lots of features I'd like to add. So what better way to do that than to have commit rights, right? So let's talk about what's going on here. All right, so quick agenda. I'm going to have a digression on what is open source, or how to get involved. What's new in Dashboard 2? Wait a minute, what's Dashboard again? Should you install this thing in the first place? All right, wait a minute, you've already got a dashboard. What's next? How do you upgrade out of here? And what's the general roadmap going forward? So here's my brief digression on getting involved in an open source project. Be kind, be helpful. Don't shout or flame at people. Really, it sucks. I actually just got one on GitHub the other day, and I was like, really, dude? Like, it takes me a couple of days to review a pull request, and that's when I'm not busy. Definitely don't be demanding that someone else write the code to solve your use case. And this especially can be a point of tension when you have mailing lists and communities where some people are hardcore coders but not really think about how the code's going to get used, and some people are hardcore users and not really think about how the sausage gets made. Bridging that gap, that in many ways is the crux of the DevOps world, right? How are we going to go forward on this? Be appreciative someone else does write the code that you were kind of hoping that somebody would do, thank them publicly. It helps a lot. It builds community. It just makes everything a nice place. Accept critique gracefully. So especially if you've got a pull request out, in the Git days now, you may be asked to rebase and adjust your commits and squash them and do all kinds of stuff where you're like, Git, I don't know Git. Learn Git. It's an investment in time on your part, but it makes everything so much better in the code base. Not only that, but it just that easy interaction that you would get, on a pull request thread or something, just smooths the whole process of submitting one piece of code leads to another, trimming down a giant submission full of white space changes, and suddenly you're like, okay, here's the 2 lines I really need to change. And they're like, okay, merged, done. Okay, what was that white space? Send me that. Okay, what was that other thing you had in there? Send me that too. And now you're on a roll. And then if you are going to disagree, be direct and factual. Because nothing is more painful than a senti thread on a mailing list with lots of emotional gnashing of teeth. And basically these are all the things over the last 15 years that I've been doing open source, I try to do these, and when I see other people trying to do them, I'm like, cool, we're going to work together well. When I see people barging in, they're write the code my way. Okay, this is not going to go well. And I've actually been on the flip side of that where I'm like, I don't know this project well, I don't know this code base well, but I have some needs and some ideas, and let me just see if I can put them out there in a way that would inspire the other person to help out. Providing code reviews, for example, right? Someone submits a pull request, you go through their code review, their code in detail, help them fix bugs as they're submitting it to the project maintainers, and you kind of slip in ideas oh, and by the way, it would be really helpful if you added another option right here. And they're like, okay, well, while I'm at it, and thank you for reviewing my code, right? So now you get what you wanted, and they get what they wanted, which was help writing their code and getting it submitted. Doesn't always go well, generally goes well, right? This is life, we're people. People are difficult. All right, back to Dashboard. Enough of the digression. So what's in Dashboard 2? It's updated to Rails 3.2, was 2.3. Which has lots of security fixes, performance fixes, and so on. Many gem updates. This is now a modern bundler-oriented Rails app. So whole different way of distributing and installing one of these things, right? So you do bundle install, right? Instead of just doing a deb package or RPM install. In fact, how to RPM and deb package a bundler app is kind of an open question. We'll all have to cross that bridge as we get to it. And pull requests welcome, suggesting packaging improvements that I could bring in. Runs on both Ruby 1.8.7 and 1.9.3. Previously, it did not run on 1.9.3. Improves the REST API just by updating the underlying inherited resources gem. All kinds of stuff just works now. You put in content type application/JSON except header application/JSON, and suddenly you're curling a REST API from the command line to interact with Dashboard, and life is awesome. Lots of bug fixes and UI tweaks, and the ongoing maintenance is now moving outside of Puppet Lab. So I'll be taking that to GitHub at Sodabrew, and we promised to make the announcement like yesterday. It'll happen really soon. This is definitely the conference really soon moment. Okay, so what's Dashboard again? It's a web application, provides external node classification and report processing, and a nice view of those things. It allows you to set up variables that are going to be injected through the external node classification process into your catalogs, as well as a new concept called groups. And groups are used to create kind of inheritable types of machines. And I'm like carefully trying not to use the word class, right? A class of machines. Because what will end up happening is using the groups to apply manifests to a set of machines. All right, obligatory screenshot. Cool. Over here, how many nodes? So this is like demo data that I had sitting in my home directory for a while. So all the machines are unresponsive and unreported, meaning I haven't refreshed my demo data in more than an hour. No big deal. If you're running Puppet regularly on all of your nodes and they're checking in regularly, then they'll all fall within that like unresponsive, unreported threshold, and so you'll see like failed, pending, changed, unchanged. The ideal situation, 100% unchanged, nobody is failed, nobody is pending, everything's cool. Doesn't always happen that way, and so then you can drill down. I'll go through like a kind of a walkthrough a little bit later. I'll go through the slideshow first and then kind of switch over to the other screen. So yeah, what's an external node classifier? So anywhere where this disagrees with the official documentation is right, and I'm like making it up. But an ENC is going to be a script. It's executed early in the catalog generation process on your Puppet master. It calls out to the script and it says, I have this host name. Tell me something. And the script is then going to return a YAML document, which is going to supply some variables and some classes that should be applied to that catalog for that host. So that's kind of the connection point as you get out to the dashboard, right? So the script then basically just curls the dashboard and says, all right, take like the nodes page and just dump it to me in YAML format so that I know what to return back to the Puppet master so I can generate this catalog. The variables that you have from the ENC are going to be available as top-level variables in your manifest. So the double colon namespace up at the top, whoa, microphone cable. And new in 2.0, this is no longer pointed at me. There we go. New in 2.0, you can parameterize classes. So this was a neat piece of work that Puppet Labs had done, and that as I was doing the Rails 3 upgrade, we like synced up and merged paths and everything came together. Okay, so using your dashboard as an ENC, as I was saying, it introduces this new concept called groups. This is not like, you would not see groups appear anywhere in your manifests. And in fact, the groups don't even appear in the YAML document that comes out from the dashboard ENC. So this is sometimes like a confusing point. People are like, well, I have it in the right group. How come I don't see, like, how do I access that group from my manifests? You don't. The groups are totally a concept internal to the dashboard that allows it to figure out what classes and variables it should pass along. And there's inheritance, and there's overriding, and so on. Okay, dashboard for reports. So the Puppet dashboard provides a reporting view. It will accept reports, the YAML documents sent up from a Puppet run on the target machine, and then process them, give you a nice web view of them, allow you to drill down into any problems. You can see what resources applied and where and what happened. It's also the Achilles heel of the dashboard. This schema is not that great. What this means is you need to do a little bit of work in order to actually make this thing work well. Two keys that I found. One is InnoDB file per table. That's just crucial, because if you're going to truncate this table, you need to make sure that you're actually reclaiming disk space. If you forget to prune reports for a while, you want to make sure you can get that disk space back, because it grows fast. So frequent pruning of old reports. And these are like kind of two of the places where like dashboard managed to get some like sketchy, difficult reputation, because it would just basically the database would blow up. Well, there are solutions to that, and I'll talk about it as far as where we're going in the future. So should you install dashboard from scratch today? Maybe. Yeah. take a look at it, evaluate if it meets your needs, compare that against the recommended new solutions using Hiera, using PuppetDB, and if it really seems to make sense for you, give it a shot. And if not, go straight to kind of the new hotness, go with Hiera, go with PuppetDB, go with Puppet Enterprise. Like, those are the things where like you're going to be on a path where you're not going to have to kind of hack around like a side channel that you've taken. But that said, right, like you can run Puppet in many different ways, and it's open source, so you can kind of, set it up however you want to. Upgrading from 1.2 to 2.0, actually not that painful. So this would be like the from source method, right? Copy over like the config and database YAMLs, update the database YAML to make sure that it's using the correct updated MySQL gem. You can also use Postgres, which is cool. Now you can get all of your databases in Postgres. If you're migrating from MySQL to Postgres, there's more work than this involved. You're going to have to dump out your tables and then reload them. Read the docs on MySQL dump and PG import. Also, if you try this out and you want to write more documentation for it, pull request. Simple database migration, no major changes have occurred in the database, adding indexes, and just doing some general cleanups. So you could run this on a production server. It doesn't change any of the report schemas. You won't totally hose yourself, but you should definitely take precautions like stopping Puppet for a little while and declaring a downtime window and so on. Cool. All right, so what's replacing dashboard? If we're kind of talking about at the same time, like in the same breath, in the same sentence, I'm like, okay, cool, dashboard, going forward, upgrades, like supported. And also like, wait a minute, jump ship, get out of here, like danger, what's going on here? So node classification is generally moving towards Hiera. And I don't really see a good integration point with dashboard, and that may just be me not like totally understanding how to jump into Hiera yet, because honestly, I actually haven't dug into it. So I apologize for that. Report processing is moving towards PuppetDB. That's an awesome one. That's like a huge, like PuppetDB is doing reports in a better way using data deduplication with an API. And well, what does that mean for dashboard? Hey, cool, we can start cutting out the report processor and just use the API to get reports and have a cool UI over like external node classification plus reports as an external service. Now we're really onto something. We've got a quick, lightweight web app that'll let us view quick overview of what's going on with our Puppet system. So what's next? Well, begin using PuppetDB as the backend for reports. That's really crucial. And I'll be working on that going forward. And then working with Deepak to make sure that the queries that I need to be able to do against PuppetDB's reporting, which is currently still like /experimental/report as the URL, and like how do we get that to like /stable version 2/report URL. And this is actually going to be one of the use cases that's going to help to drive that. So anyone out there, if you've like written custom report stuff that like reaches into the dashboard database or like queries the dashboard for reports, and you're like, okay, PuppetDB should support this, right? Make your use case known, because basically that's going to need to happen going forward to make sure that PuppetDB is able to support your needs. Aiming for Ruby 2.0 support, there's some funkiness around YAML parsing. Ruby 2 has switched to the psych parser. At the moment, I'm still forcing the old sick parser. It's faster and less compliant. If you've been following like the various like Puppet mailing lists, you'll be well aware that YAML is a serious sore point. So we'll try to get that working. That's going to be one of those like, okay, hack around this. What's going on? What's the clean path forward? I don't know yet. Migration tools. Well, you might want to ditch dashboard, and that's okay. This should be a less painful process. You might want to move to Puppet Enterprise. That's okay. You should make sure that's not a painful process. I think within the enterprise product, they'll probably support you pretty well there. On the open source side, though, you want to make sure that you can dump out your data, figure out what's going on, change what you're doing, get to PuppetDB, get to Hiera. There are competing dashboards and ENCs. There's the Foreman, for example. They basically look pretty similar. They operate pretty differently. The end goal is often the same, which is just applying classes and variables to nodes as they run Puppet. More features, pull request welcome. And thanks, that was actually really fast. So I'm gonna go and actually show dashboard in just a moment, right? Because I did promise I would show like what it does and how to use it and how to connect it into your Puppet system. So I can pause for questions if anyone has anything now, or I will jump to the next slide. Yes? Inventory search remains present in Dashboard 2, and that goes out to the inventory service. And where that's going next, I don't really know. I actually haven't looked into it.
First of all, thank you for taking on the project. There's a lot of us that have been using Dashboard, and we're not candidates for Puppet Enterprise, so thank you very much for supporting it. My question is more about, Dashboard's kind of two products. Your ENC and your report processor.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, I use Hiera. I actually am nodeless, so I don't use an ENC at all. Have you considered kind of breaking them into two components so that you just install, say, the part that you need?
So the question is, Dashboard provides both ENC services and report processing, and they're really two totally different things. They just happen to be in the same system here. The question is, on not using Dashboard as an ENC, only using it as a report processor, what's the next steps for that? And the next step for that is really going to PuppetDB, and then figuring out how to get the queries and the views that you need for your use case to come out of PuppetDB's report processing. Yes?
I'm a FreeBSD port tree committer, and I started working on importing 1.2 and making a FreeBSD port out of it. I ran into some issues, mainly, I think, and I'm not a Ruby person either, so I'm trying to sort of figure out all of this stuff. It appeared at the time that gems were kind of pre-packaged with Dashboard,
Mm-hmm.
which is unfortunately not the way a FreeBSD port tree works real well. And so I was trying to figure out how to unbundle things. Is that possible, or do you have to use the bundled stuff?
So the question is on FreeBSD distribution ports maintainer looking at bundling, or rather packaging Dashboard 1.2 for FreeBSD, and whether it needs its internal gems that are actually vendored into the Dashboard 1.2 tree. And the answer is pretty much yes, it does need them. You could try updating some of them through the ports tree, but I think you'll end up in like a world of gem pain. In Dashboard 2, the vendor gems are all totally removed, and they're coming through Bundler. And Bundler is a Ruby tool that will collect, you declare the dependencies that your application has on external gems. And then when you do a bundle install, it goes up to rubygems.org and it pulls them down. It can also pull them down from Git. It can pull them down from your local or local Ruby gem source. Like, it's a pretty flexible way of like finding a gem wherever it happens to be. You could even declare a gem to be like at a specific location on the file system, and Bundler will make that happen for you. So I would recommend starting there going forward. And there may be some good connection points that other Ruby web apps have that some other FreeBSD port committers may have found for pulling in bundled gems to support an application.
It's possible the bundler itself is a port.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, then other ports can use that as perhaps,
Yeah. So if Bundler is available as a FreeBSD port, but what you'd be doing essentially, it would be like if somebody used CMake instead of make, you'd be like first installing CMake and then running it, right? So here, yeah. So it'd be definitely part of installing, in some cases also compiling, and that's also really the key issue. Like any of the database connection gems necessarily have to compile and link against your local database libraries. So they're going to end up being platform specific. It is not possible to distribute a totally platform neutral Ruby web app that has a database dependency for that reason.
So it sounds like 2.0 is the place to start.
Yeah, yes, totally.
Are there
yes.
any 1.2 enhancements coming, or is it all the focus on 2.0 now?
All the focus is on 2.0. 1.2 is in like total like emergency bug fix, like massive security problem maintenance only. And even then, I might even say, nope, sorry, you're going to have to upgrade to get through that problem. And I'll see what I can do, and Puppet Labs will see what they can do. We'll see like kind of who's going to actually keep the 1.2 torch. If there were to drop a serious security flaw today, what would we do? Probably do a patch release for that. But very soon going forward, I don't think so. Cool. Uh-oh. Full screen mode, fail me now. Okay, and escape, and switch to Chrome, and pray. All right, success, cool. All right, it's squishing the screen, unfortunately, a little bit, so everything's like looking not neatly lined up. Okay, so here's what dashboard looks like. We can check out who are unresponsive nodes. Currently, everyone's unresponsive, who's failed. In dashboard 2 now, we have the URL is updated so that you can actually bookmark and share these. So let's drill into a particular host. We see when it was reported at. Here's the log. There's the log tab. Here's the events. There's the events tab. You can drill down and see what happened with a particular event. Things changed or things failed. They'll be in red. You can then say, OK, what went on here? We have a list of groups. Groups have inheritance. So here's groups mammals. Mammals inhale oxygen, and they have no thumbs by default. There's a derived group called monkeys. Monkeys have 5 fingers. They do have thumbs, in fact, but they still inhale oxygen, right? So that source of that particular variable is coming up from mammals. And then we can find out, hey, on this particular node, what is actually being applied to it. These variables are now going to go directly in to the catalog compilation process. The groups, again, are totally just a dashboard concept that allows us to pick where these variables and classes are coming from. And there's a class. I named the class. Sorry about that. It's coming from monkeys, right? If I were to assign a host to only live in group mammals, so there actually are no nodes in here. So let's just see. All right, let's put that sample one in there. Cool. So now if I look at this guy, right, so he does not inherit thumbs being true or the number of fingers. And he doesn't have class. There are no classes.
Classes refers to Puppet classes.
Yes. That's an, OK, thank you. What do classes here do? So over in this classes list, these are literally going to be, and unfortunately they're kind of, you're going to enter them either by hand or you're going to import them by scanning, grepping through your entire Puppet tree. What are the classes that are available in your Puppet modules directory? And these are going to be their names. And they're going to be a by name match. So there's no automatic, like, if I do add a class, there is not an automatic, like, name of any class here, right? I'm going to have to type this in manually. But I can provide a description. That's cool. Now I have a class. Now the class is over here. Now I can see assign nodes. Oops, sorry. I can take nodes and assign classes to them. What's next? Here's reports. New, now we can query just by reports in a particular state. Super helpful, like for keeping the failed reports as a bookmark, like who is failing recently, and jumping there quickly. And the refresh is happening by JavaScript on the client side, which I thought was kind of cool. So you don't have to round trip for it, and it also notices if I'm on a edit page, it's not going to refresh me. Cool. Cancel. Timer is now counting again. Let's see, what else is new? There's a couple of other neat things going on. Let's see if Prodigalous.
Class parameters?
Yes, parameterized classes. Thank you. Let's see. So this like UI is just neatly updated, right? So now you can actually see a long value. And then let's do a parameterized class. So if I do this class over here, oops, sorry, let me back up. And I want to, oops, where do I jump in for that? How do I forget where that link is? There we go, parameters, none. Okay, cool. Now we can parameterize this class. Why not? Okay, so now, as this class is a member of, in the node group monkeys, right? You will now get these parameters through on the nodes here. So if I take this node, and, well, what I really want to do is get this as YAML. Let's see what happens when I jump over here. And of course, full screen has failed me again. There we go. This is the obligatory curl moment. Yes, cool. All right. So curling over to localhost, and I'm going to add text/YAML. Cool. All right. So now I've got, this is the name of the host. It has some classes. Sorry, this class is actually named, let me just change the name of this class, just so we can like, so it's not like so confusing what's going on here. Yeah, let's do that. Cool. Nope, let's try this again. There we go, cool. Let's try that again. All right. So the class name useful module base has these parameters so that when this catalog is going to be compiled, that class will actually be instantiated with those parameters. So if it's a parameterized class, it will take a bunch of defaults plus these values. Whoa. I'm going to very carefully reattach this. Okay. It's really because the cable is like falling off my arm. Oh, man. Okay, am I on? I'm good, all right. All right, cool. So there we go, that's what the YAML output looks like. That's gonna be the ENC output that's gonna end up in the catalog compilation phase. And if you have a class there, let's see. Yeah, okay. Let me cut to questions again. Yes?
What's the relationship between dashboard and this, incarnation?
Yep. So the enterprise console basically adds live management and other features and a support contract on top of open source dashboard. Does that sound about right?
Probably.
Yeah,
But they
cool.
don't share code base at all.
They do share a code base. So sorry, I'll repeat the question. So the question is, what is the relationship between dashboard in this incarnation and the Puppet Enterprise product? And the answer is, Enterprise product is going to add a support contract, live management, ongoing bug fixes on their side of things, and any other features that Puppet Lab needs in there for their enterprise product. They do share a code base. And then on the open source side, kind of we may head off in other directions. That's totally an opportunity at this point. Now the dashboard is going to be kind of leaving the mothership and like set sail on its own. So if there are features that you need that Puppet Labs is like, nah, I'm not going to add that to enterprise. And on the open source side, like, well, I'll write the code and contribute it to open source dashboard. If it makes sense for a wide variety of users, then totally that is a welcome contribution. Questions? Yes?
What are your recommendations of cleaning reports and old notes? How often should you improve?
So what do we have at BrightRoll? We've got in a particular Puppet installation where we have about 1,000 machines and they run Puppet about hourly. We do a cleaning run about every 8 hours. And if we do it less frequently than that, then the cleaning runs start to spread out into taking just way too long. If we do it more frequently than that, it's kind of ridiculous. Then you're just hammering your database a lot. So we found that's about a nice balance. It keeps everything like running quickly, right? Because one other thing is that with reports get stale, then they're kind of cluttering up the UI. The UI is like, basically like the database tables just get huge. And then again, PuppetDB should basically solve this problem with really nice deduplication. So if you have like one resource that gets applied out to all 1,000 hosts, you're going to have one instance of that resource defined in the reporting database. And then all 1,000 hosts, all of the reports that they generate that have that one resource in that state are going to refer over to that. So way cleaner schema, way less pain going forward.
That actually answers my question.
Okay. Yes?
Did I understand you correctly that the 2.0 version supports Postgres now?
That's correct. The 2.0 version supports Postgres now. Yes?
Can you describe the API and sort of
Sure.
what happened with that and what you can do with it?
Yeah, let's take a look. One of the things that you can do, let's see, let's take a look. Let's see how we do this. This is going to be what I was previously doing at the office to get new nodes loaded in with a bunch of parameters, which was literally scraping the form, stealing the authenticity token, and then posting the values back to it. When I take a look at the Cool. Let's do that again. All right, so now when I look at this in the newer piece of code that relies on having dashboard 2 and having some more consistency in a lot of the JSON responses, then new node becomes, here's a JSON document, and then post it to the dashboard. Not only that, but I can say, I'm giving you JSON, and I want back YAML. And in one shot, we've both created the node and gotten back the set of classifications that that node should now have going forward. So this is totally a way in which you can script dashboard. I'll probably take excise out some demonstration parts of this particular script, pull the secret sauce out, right, from my office and allow you to use it for your office. There is a nodegroups.json. So for example, here I can pull back the node groups. Let me get that into a more readable format. Okay, right, cool. So this is going to be a list of all of the groups that we've created here. I could do the same thing with classes and then see what's in there. And then again, I can also post to the node class's new endpoint JSON document to create these things. So all of the manipulations through the API start to get really nice and consistent in 2.0. A lot of this was available in 1.2, but I found a lot of it to be kind of wonky and inconsistent. And not all locations were kind of correctly formatting all the data that I really would want to get out. Like it might give me the ID number and the name only, and none of the other metadata that would be relevant to actually setting up a REST client.
Is that
Please.
API going to be pushed into the console, the enterprise console?
I see Jeff Weiss nodding yes. This API is now going to be available through the Enterprise Console as well. Yeah. And a lot of this is really coming as a thanks to actually Rails itself and the inherited resources gem maintainer. So, for all of the the pain that Ruby can bring, Rails is still a fun and usable way, usable environment, and you can get a lot done pretty quickly. You just have to, it's got sharp edges like everything. Yes, another question.
This will all be mooted by PuppetDB eventually, hopefully, but with 2.0,
Mm-hmm.
Does it support clustered report processing?
Yes, you can do clustered report processing. So the question is, PuppetDB may make this all go away, but does Puppet Dashboard support clustered report processing? And yes, you can do it with 1.2, and you can do it with 2.0. And you can't do it with PuppetDB yet. Or you can, but you can only do it with one database, I guess. That's really, you could have multiple PuppetDBs running, but you'd have to point them all back to the same database host. I guess you have to do the same thing here. Yeah, I guess it's about equivalent, now that I think about it. And PuppetDB going forward will have super clustering. It's just going to end up being the more capable system for report processing. I'd really strongly recommend everyone to begin tracking where PuppetDB is at, and you may actually want to send your reports in both directions, which you can totally do. Go edit your PuppetConf and just say report URL equals PuppetDB, dashboard, done. You get reports in both places.
My understanding though is with PuppetDB is, again, it's not going to be a front end, they're just going to be storing reports in a more sane manner.
PuppetDB, so the question is, PuppetDB is not going to have a front end for viewing reports. And the answer at the moment, my understanding is that is true. PuppetDB is really focusing on having on the back end. And as long as it's got a really great API, then basically the viewability of the reports kind of becomes everybody else's problem. It's all of our problem now, but not necessarily it's a good way of separating out. If Puppet Labs gives us an awesome API for getting our reports, and we each develop awesome dashboards for viewing them that are kind of ideal for our individual organizations, that is open source kind of doing its magic.
Well, and I'm doing exactly what you're talking about now. I actually send reports to both. And the idea is that I would write scripts that would look for failed runs and so forth using PuppetDB. But what dashboard is really great for me is when I do a change to 800 servers, and after that I want to look over the whole thing all at once and have a visual view to be able to drill down.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad to hear that you're looking to switch eventually to PuppetDB as the report collection.
Yep. So the question is, the questioner is asking, saying both he is sending reports in both directions, both to PuppetDB and to Dashboard. But Dashboard is the one that really gives the nice overview of you pushed out a change, and now it's is your failed runs red bar ticking up on the dashboard view. And yeah, we totally use that at BrightRoll all the time. We love it. That's how we know very quickly if oops, I broke something. And yeah, that is something that I'm going to be presenting as an important use case for PuppetDB to make sure that as Deepak continues his work on PuppetDB, that the APIs for querying that in the most concise way, and then getting back that key data quickly are available. And then we could do cool things like the radiator view, for example, right? Starts to become, so here's the radiator view. Right, so if you throw this up on the whole radiator view itself just becomes a single HTML JavaScript all in one app document. You just need to embed somewhere where it's getting its data from. And in fact, you could even throw this onto PuppetDB. We could probably even submit this right now to query to live in PuppetDB and then to query it back to itself, right? Because cross-site scripting and whatnot, you probably need them on the same server, or at least that's the easiest way to do it. Yeah. Question?
Could you make parsable outputs of radiators so that you don't have to extract from HTML table? We're just extracting the data from this page.
Like that? Radiator.json.
But that's not available in the 1.2
That's not available in 1.2. What was actually happening is Radiator was baking the web page entirely, and the updated Radiator actually doesn't bake in the data. It pulls it from radiator.json and updates it live. So this little checkbox is actually telling me that it successfully was able to query the backend for data. If I go over here and
Have numbers in that JSON, or was it just the headings?
there the numbers are in there as well. And so now, if we'll wait a moment, this will refresh and it will give me a little X saying can't talk to the server anymore. So back into radiator.json. Oh, this isn't going to work because I just killed it. Let's foreground that again. So back into radiator.json. Yeah, so what I did is I split it into a display first. So I wanted to know so that your JavaScript application could have the minimum amount of knowledge of what the contents of this document are. So it would loop over the display array, and each one is a hash of key and name telling you what the display should be, what the display name should be, and then what the key is going to be down here, and then down at the end of the document, I guess that was really the key information you were looking for, was those are the keys that have the actual numbers that you can then parse through. Yeah. Next question.
What's really the state, the release status of 2.0? Is it work in progress, or do you recommend to use this in a production environment?
It is totally production ready. We are just at the point of needing to merge branches, tag it, and put up release notes.
Almost out the door?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Michael and I at Puppet Labs basically email each other back and forth every couple of weeks. We're like, okay, I think I'm ready and I have some time. A week later, I get a reply okay, I think I'm ready and have some time. And a week later, I think I'm ready and have some time now. And so we're just in this state of there's just a ton of other personal and professional competing priorities at the moment. And we'll totally nail this out so that we have a base to move forward on soon.
That means we can pester you about when the release.
You can totally pester, yes. I'm the right person to pester, and you can totally pester me. It is well-deserved at this point, because I've introduced some delays in the process.
It makes you feel better about the stability. It has been incorporated into enterprise, E3, so it's very, very stable.
I was going to ask you some questions about 1.2, but I suppose it's not so necessary.
So 1.2 questions are certainly welcome insofar as if they represent bugs that we haven't yet fixed in 2.0. But seeing no more questions, thank you all very much.